So I went to Norfolk State. Our homecoming was last weekend, but I didn't make it. I was actually in Miami doing a presentation. I'm very excited to be here. I'm going to switch it over this morning. And as Greg mentioned, I started out in the hospitality industry in 2001. I actually have a degree in biology, and I did cancer research for about 9 years. So I know that kind of career transition. And I've been a business owner. My business failed and back in 2008 in the Great Recession, and then I went back and got my MBA. And I actually went and taught down in Miami at Johnson & Wales. I was a professor in the hospitality department. I was recruited from there to Sandals Resorts International, so I lived in Jamaica for about 2.5 years. We got to travel to all the islands where Sandals are located. I had enough of Caribbean life, but when it gets this cold, I am a snowbird. And probably last year I moved back up, or a year and a half ago I moved back up and have been at NFC Amenity Management. It's the biggest company that you've never heard of. So we are the largest amenity management company in the US. I have about 32 properties here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Unfortunately, the scope of work is very small. It is concierge, so that person who kind of sits behind the desk and really greets and interacts with the residents. But what I have seen in this position is a real shift in hospitality. And the biggest shift really comes in the regards to technology. So one, I commend you for being here on this lovely Monday morning. I'm usually at home in front of my computer with my pajamas on because I telecommute 3 days a week, and I come in the city 2 days a week. But I love this quote. It's usually in all my presentations. The illiterate of the 21st century are not those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think that's so pivotal in today's society because what was law 5 years ago is non-existent today. Like, we're still talking about Pluto, that now they may make it a planet again, where it wasn't a planet, they're still trying to figure it out. So understanding being here today, I really commend you because you are trying to learn and unlearn and relearn what's happening in the world of hospitality technology. So you guys already kind of went around the room and did your introduction, so thank you so much. It gives me a better idea of who my audience is and really being able to speak to it. So let's talk about the first side of technology. And I love this presentation. I do it and pretty much anything that I talk about because this is where we are in hospitality. So for those of you who may or may not know, Hilton's corporate office is up in McLean, Virginia. This is Connie. This is their front desk agent. She's at one of their flagship locations up in Northern Virginia. So she can tell you anything about the Hilton location and what's within 10 miles of the location. This is a loft hotel. This is their front desk. What's missing?
There's people.
There are no front desk staff at this hotel. It really is geared to more of a millennial audience where they're not as concerned about customer service and more about experiences and prices. So as those people who are business owners in the room, you know the most expensive thing that we have is manpower. So by reducing the manpower, when you go to a hotel, there is one in Times Square, you will not come across any humans whatsoever. The restaurant is basically an old school, like 1940s vending machine where you put your money in, you open the door, and you pull your sandwich out. That is your experience. But people are not staying in the hotel, it's in Times Square. So you're gonna go walk around, you're not worried as much about that human interaction. This is an A-loft in California. This is the room service attendant. So when you call down and say, I need a toothbrush or a towel, again, you're not gonna have that human coming and knocking on your door. It operates on Wi-Fi, so we can talk to the elevator, know what floor to get up on, and which door to go to. This little fella is a manager at KFC in China. So there are no humans that work in the restaurant. This is for my spa people. I was just in Miami last week. The location is called Contempo Beach Spa. There are no therapists that work in the location. So this is how you would get a facial, and then for the massage, you just kind of lay on a table with a rolling bed, and that is the experience. For my current position with NFC, this has become our biggest competitor. It is a package locker. We lost a contract to a building earlier this year to a package locker. So when we talk about technology, it's not 10 years out, it's here. The other big component is going to be virtual reality, but I really think that that's going to help push the industry forward, because one of the biggest things in hospitality is intangibility. What does it look like? Who's going to be working on me? Who am I going to be interacting with? With this newer technology to hospitality, Marriott is rolling it out where you can go and do a virtual tour of the location, your room, the conference area. My suggestion for spas is that have us meet your therapist, because that's one of the biggest concerns, especially as we're talking about millennials, because they are the largest demographic. I'm going to leave that where it is, that is fact. But understanding that the expectation of customer service has changed. It can no longer be good, it can't be just very good, it's not even excellent accepted anymore, it really has to be exceptional. Customers want to be wowed. Now, understanding that in this new age, dealing with the millennials, they want to have experiences. So regardless of the type of business that you're in, there's always an opportunity to personalize the customer experience. Be that, I was just down at the show last week, they were talking about different scents that you can customize, different services, rooms, whatever that may be. I know there were 2 event planners in the room. That pre-cookie cut option does not work for this new demographic. They want to come in and they want to put their own kind of fingerprint onto their experiences. So really considering that as we're moving forward. What's also very interesting is we are living in the age of loneliness, where people are just not connected anymore. So the General Society of Surveys found that the number of Americans who do not have close friends has tripled since 1985, right? The Global Wellness Institute stated by 2020, 60% of the world's population will live alone. So people are not connected anymore. We're connected to our phones, our tablets. Like myself, I telecommute, so I don't have coworkers. We talk on the phone and maybe email back and forth, but to come and sit and have this interaction is becoming more and more rare. So people are looking for ways to reconnect, right? So when we talk about what customer service is, it's really going beyond the basic and looking at this concept of customer care, customer connection, and customer relationships, right? So with coming from the spa world, my thing is put as much touch and as much interacting to your services as you can get, because we don't have that. People are not connected, they're not interacting, they don't have the close friends, which means they don't have that networking opportunity, right? So figuring out how many of you are on LinkedIn? Good. With a professional picture. Thank you. Figuring out ways, how can you connect beyond just liking their post, but can we meet, can we have a call, can we have a Skype call? How can we interact with one another to really build those relationships, right? Because that's what networking really is about, is a relationship. I want to help you, you want to help me, or I know that there's opportunities available, how can we work together? And really create that connection, because we are so digitally driven these days. Does that make sense? So finding ways to kind of take those interactions offline. Can we meet for coffee? What else can I do? What else can we talk about besides I liked your article here, right? Does that make sense? And the more you get out, the better, because it just puts you in front of a different audience who might be able to support your career goals and where you want to be. What I will also say is you are transitioning into different opportunities. Make sure that you're open to those opportunities. It may not necessarily be packaged the way that you want, but it might be able to get you to that next level and through the door. I interview every week, and for my hires, what I say to them, the hardest part is just getting your foot through the door, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but I really want to stress, when we're talking about hospitality and all of this technology that's involved, finding ways to get that face-to-face, that interaction, that relationship is going to be so important and key. I love this quote because I think not only is the customer as that external person coming into your business, but also that current employee. I do a lot of leadership training as well. So the customer is the most important visitor on our premise. He is not dependent on us. We are dependent on him. He is not an interruption to our work. He is the purpose of it. He is not an outsider in our business. He is a part of it. We are not doing him a favor by serving him. He is doing us a favor by giving us the opportunity to do so. It takes it in a very different direction, right? And especially, I find it so interesting being back in DC because I was in Miami and that has its own challenges with customer service. But I worked on a 5-star resort, so every morning I was used to good morning, how are you, miss? Just that interaction. And I come back here and it's like barren. You know, I love going to restaurants and, you know, and it kills me because I do have a younger son. I see the influence of all the places that we lived. He lived with me in the Caribbean. But coming back here, and I said, thank you to him, and he said, no problem. I said, absolutely not in this house. You can say you're welcome or my pleasure, but there will be no problem in my house because I live hospitality. It is what I do day in, day out, and I absolutely love the industry. But this is what we're gonna have to think about even when we're talking about our job searches. So being mindful of the audience that you're interacting with, when you're going to the different career fairs, all of those different aspects. Can you get it? Good morning. How are you? Fantastic, thank you. Yes, closer is better. I don't bite most of the time. All right, so we talked about that one side of technology and just the need for higher interaction when it comes to customer service. I want to talk to you about the other side that's probably going to be a little bit more impactful, and this is going to be on the hiring side. So I was telling Greg, I went to this recruiting session a couple of weeks ago, ISIMS, and I got my socks rocked on what this program can do. So what it solidified for me is in 5 years I won't have a job. Point blank period. There's going to be very few human recruiters. What you're going to have to deal with is this high-tech computer system. And you are going to have to know how to work this system to be able to be selected because it's not going to fall on human eyes. It's only going to be the computer, right? So they have parameters. One of the first things is, did you finish the application, right? What information did you include? So I know we're looking to transition, but this is going to be so important, is what are you putting on your resume? Now I know this is 40 plus, and I do not want you to be offended by the statement that I'm going to make next, but I don't need to know that you worked in 73. I don't need to know that you worked in 85. I don't need to even know that you worked in the 90s. It's 2018, soon to be 2019. If you give me 19 years of work experience, I think that's enough. Because understand, the computer is reading it, and you know what they're filtering for, right? Age discrimination is real. So please don't tell me that you graduated from college in 73, that you started. I had a gentleman who worked at Tower Records starting in the 70s. I already know. Now, I still brought him in. We had a really good conversation. He wanted to be able to walk to work. I have no buildings where he can walk to work. But understand, when you're dealing with these computer systems, they can filter you out based on those things, right? So keep it, we don't need 17 pages. We were just at a career fair last Friday. I got an 8-page resume. Why? No one is reading 8 pages. So be very, very mindful of this content that you're putting in here because the system is reading it. And you can literally, it's kind of like Chipotle for job hunting. I want this, I don't want that, I want this much of it, keep that. And that's what they're gonna pull down out of the system. So when you are putting this information and you're sitting down, and I know it's tough out there, because it's like 2 hours to fill out one of these applications, because you gotta go find who your boss was 12 years ago, and their phone number, and their email address. It is very time consuming, but what I will say is don't reinvent the wheel every single time. Have that file, have a Word document that has all your references, that has your work history, that has your addresses, and again, you don't need to go back to the 70s, okay? Question?
Also, another thing I discovered is depending on the job, one job application I had to actually provide the number for my selective service.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just, like you said, just have a Word document, put that information
have
in
all
there.
of that stuff in there.
Cut and paste.
Yes, ma'am.
You said about the 70s. When should you stop?
2000 is enough.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm going to show you that.
I like that clear answer.
Yes.
You know, I like that.
That's 18 years. So that gives you about an age of 35, right? I'm 40 plus, so I'm trying to help you work the system. So 2000, that gives you about 18 years. If you graduated high school about 18, that makes you about 34, 35. That still makes you, in most eyes, viable. When we start seeing work in the 80s and the 70s, there's a stigmatism that goes with that. And we want to kind of circumvent that, because the hardest part, again, is getting in front of that recruiter and getting selected.
The 90s or like?
No, that's 2000. That's 18 years of experience.
Okay, well, thank you.
That's all you need.
You're very clear about it. I like
Yes.
that. Yeah.
There was a question.
Yes, yes. In my case, I had a break in the 90s for children. So, I had experience in the 80s.
Then in
late
2000?
80s, and then I had children for 10 years, so I was a stay-at-home mom, and then went back to work. So, like my collective time of working is 19 plus years, but there's a break,
Go after kids forward.
after kids' work.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And you need to be able to have that conversation on, because I recruit a lot, and I get these younger, it's more the younger audience, and I say, I see you weren't working for 2 years, what happened? I had a baby. Okay, that's fine, but there has to be a better way to package that. I think we're wise enough in the room to know that, I wanted to go have a family, I took certain classes while I was out, and I'm ready to apply that skill set in my current position. That makes it a whole different conversation than I just had a baby, right? So keeping that in mind. Yes, ma'am.
So if you want to show, I'm assuming you're not saying don't show previous experience, just don't put a year or two in, things like university.
Yes, university, please keep your university on there, but I don't need to see what year you graduated. And the same thing, if you don't have college experience and you just have high school, I don't need to see that you graduated in 79. Keep that to yourself. I just want to know that and for us, we don't require college degrees. It's nice, right? But you don't want to eliminate yourself from the pool based on those things, right? Because this system, so they're not going to get disqualified because they're just going to type it in this time to this time. And if you don't fit into that circle, it's not that they took it personal, the computer did it. So we have to know how to outsmart the computer, right?
I got a question.
I love questions.
Just in terms of numbers, you said millennials are the largest demographics.
They are.
Out of, say, 100% in terms of whole population, are they 50?
No, they're closer to 60% of the population.
Are you serious?
Yes, because the older populations, the numbers are declining, and you take that however you choose. But no, they're closer to 60% of the population. Gen X is one of the smallest. We're kind of the lunch meat between the two breads of baby boomer and millennials. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with Gen Z, because they're kind of changing the game. They're considered to be kind of what the baby boomers are, kind of post-war, depression, they kind of went through the Great Recession. So they're feeling it's going to be a different work ethic for the millennials and a different mindset, more so than the millennials. You had a question in the back, sir?
Yes, related to board service and volunteering, would those same rules apply?
Yes, we do not need the years.
Okay.
If you volunteer at 40 plus, just volunteer at 40 plus. We don't need that whole timeline. Because again, understanding that millennials do hire as well. So you want to be in that pool and circle. If there is a work gap, I love seeing volunteer experience. It really does kind of say like I'm putting my best foot forward, even though the doors haven't opened for me. There was a woman that I met a couple of weeks ago. She's been unemployed for 8 years and hasn't volunteered, hasn't done anything. I said, once you hit 10, it's gonna be almost impossible to kind of get back into that workforce if you haven't done anything, nothing, for 10 years. Get it in there, fill it up. We love seeing that because it's showing that you're increasing your skill set. So if you can get certifications, take classes, participate, I wanna see that you're active, that you can still relate to that demographic that's coming in. I have a property down the street at DuPont Circle. It's mainly George Washington students. So I need to know you can still relate, and we were talking about what Uber is, and you can get in contact with them, right? Because that's one of the requests that we have is, can you call Uber for me and get them here? Or where's your Uber board? Where's the Metro? And if you're looking at hospitality, was it Regine?
Oh, good for you.
My sister-in-law's name is Regine.
Now.
I knew Regine.
Right.
Understanding that. that you will have, like we do a lot of packages, be it a hotel or be it a front desk building. So being able to be computer savvy, especially for my event planners, like knowing those different programs and systems to be able to pull that up, is going to be key for you because you're dealing with a different demographic. So being able to text, like not like my mother, who leaves all vowels out of her text messages, and it just looks like Morse code. I'm like, I don't know what this is. But understanding who your audience is and being able to meet them there. And that audience typically is this millennial audience. So you have to have that separate language to be able to engage with them. So as I was saying, this is kind of me, the recruiter. I'm going away. And if you've applied at Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, any major large chain, you're not dealing with a live person. Even when I go to the career fairs with them, what they say is, I'll take your resume, but go apply online. Mm-hmm. Right? So you don't have me. What you have is the system, and you have to be able to function in this world.
So in other words,
yes, ma'am.
What you're saying is that in 5 years,
this is who you're going to talk to for a job, exclusively. And you're going to have to go through the system. So I have a good girlfriend of mine who's 40 plus, and she's going for a director's position. The first person she talked to was in India. The second person was in Chicago. She would do a 2-hour personality assessment. And now if she passed it, now they're going to bring her in for the face-to-face. So you have to be able to master this system.
So where do you go to learn that?
We're going to talk about that. You have the skill set. It really is just the dedication, putting in the time, staying active with it. I was just reading an article I was sharing with Greg. Is the reason that no one wants to talk to grandma is because grandma does not speak the same language as the grandkids. So it's kind of like we were saying, like Microsoft 10, you got to upload your software. You got to update it. You got to understand what is being said, what language is, really getting out there, talking to that other demographic, so that you are aware you can have that communication, because you're going to have to be able to work with Gen Z or sophomores in college right now. So you're going to have Gen Z employees, millennials, Gen X, baby boomers, super seniors. You're going to have the full gamut, and you have to be able to be adaptable in all of those settings. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So understanding that you're going to have to know not only how to make a first impression in this room, but how do you make an effective first impression online and that interaction. This I pulled down. This is one of the craziest messages I have ever received in my life. And this is real. This is not a joke. This is a real message that I got. Okay, that's a new rejection. LOMA, just burn my resume. Thanks, don't contact me again. Now, this candidate sent this in Indeed. And what you don't know about when you apply on Indeed, it never goes away. It's like social media. It is there forever. So any person in my company can go look at the communication chain with this candidate, and we're done. Isn't that crazy?
yeah.
That is crazy. So understanding when you have these opportunities to interact with the recruiter, and again, this is probably not the right demographic, but I'm still going to say it, make it professional. This was another one that I got.
Did you laugh when you saw that?
I did, I hollered.
Okay, thank God, okay, because okay. You have to get it.
It's just good morning and nothing else. It's
Nothing else, right? Because you're looking there like, what is this?
okay.
Right. Who are you? What is this from? Where did we meet? What is our interaction?
So that's all they said.
This is all they said. That was the whole email. Was good morning and their resume. Real, see,
Brief to the point.
I see, right? I put my that's my email address. So this is, I took a screenshot of this. So understanding, I have 11,000 candidates in Indeed, and I have over 100,000 candidates on our website. So when I see this, and I know who you have to interact with in our building, so we know the wharf, right, of a waterfront. P.N. Hoffman owns the waterfront. Mr. Hoffman lives in the building that I hired for. So understanding who we are appealing to, who we are dealing with, good morning is not gonna cut it, right?
But it's an okay, good morning is okay, right? That's
Right. Well, can I get a name? Like, who are you? Good morning. My name is. Well, I have better models. So here's a better one. Good afternoon, Miss Tennessee. My name is such and such. I was referred. I'm currently seeking. This is more of what we're looking for. That interaction, that professionalism, right? So when you get that email from that recruiter, it's going back to creating that great first impression. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. Here was another one, because these are fewer and further between. I get a lot of, and what was so funny is I said to them, can you have them introduce themselves or say something in the email? I got good morning. And that's it, right? But again, this interaction, I've worked really selling yourself in this introduction, because when I see this, I'm like, absolutely, how quickly can we get you in for an interview, right? I got one last week. Again, I was rocked. He said, I'm sorry I'm running late. I'm sleeping on a friend's couch. So diarrhea of the mouth. And that happens in interviews. You get a little nervous, you're excited, you've been waiting for this opportunity, but it's not marriage. I think we walk into these interviews like, this is gonna change my life, I'm gonna go buy the white dress tomorrow. It's not that, it's a date. So when you go on a date, you gotta have questions to ask, right? Tell me more about the company. How long have you been with the company? What's your favorite part about working for the company? Where do you see the company in 5 years? It's dating, it's interviewing like a boss. Like, I don't want to be the only person asking questions in the room. Engage with me. Now, what I say to people is, don't have it be something you can Google. And let's not talk money on the first date, right? Because that's like, can we move in together? Right? You ready? Like, I'm ready to pay for all my bills. Let's be one. And you're like, we didn't even finish dinner yet. Like, dessert hasn't come. Yes, ma'am.
Like when you're filling out a job application online, and they ask for your salary requirements. I had one that
say open.
There's a website called Glassdoor that you can go to, and you can see what the average salary amount is. So maybe putting a window in there.
Yeah.
What I will say is DC, New York, California pay better than any other region. So if you're going to Atlanta, you can cut that in half.
Mm-hmm.
But go do your research and see what those positions are paying. One, because you don't want to undersell yourself.
Right.
So know what they had. I just talked to a girlfriend of mine, and she was like, she was looking at her position posted someplace else. She said, I'm underpaid by $20,000. But it was $15,000 more than she was making at her last job. So she was like, okay, 15 is enough. Like, I would have never thought to go another $35,000 above what I was making. But she had done her research and done that information. They are shifting away from asking you about your previous salary and expectations. But what I would say is go in with a rough number of what you want and being flexible. When I stepped into this role, I had a number. And they were like, we can't meet that, but here's what else we could do. So being flexible, having other options, maybe you start your health insurance earlier. That is an option. Instead of waiting 90 days, maybe you can start your health insurance within the first 30 days, and that will offset the cost of things. Getting creative in that. Okay, if you can't give me the salary, can I work from home sometime? Do you have any kind of transportation assistance? Getting creative, because it's the overall package that you're looking for, and not maybe just the salary aspect of it. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
So I just had this application that I submitted, and I had they asked for a specific, like I was forced, like a little red asterisk. You have to fill that in, and then will I be able to negotiate? Would I be willing to negotiate that salary? And so I went ahead and I did do that. But I guess I'm just
That's a whole other class on women and not asking for their work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is ask for more.
Right.
I mean, ask for it so that if they can't meet that, maybe they can come down a little bit, and maybe after 90 days or at the end of the year or 6-month review, we can come back to it. But know what that baseline is so that you can work from that point.
Would a company dismiss an application if the salaries, in that case, is too much? I mean, I did do research.
If it pays $60,000 and you're asking for 120, yes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna think that you are crazy.
Mhm.
So we're just gonna go ahead and bypass that. But if it's just a few thousand within range, let's have a conversation, especially if your background
Mhm.
meets what I'm looking for.
Got it, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely,
Okay.
thank you.
My pleasure. I think I have a few more. All right. So when we talk about resumes, especially those Indeed, those computer-generated, kind of fab resumes, we gotta stay away from this. So, and I know any administrative assistant taking calls, took money, greeted all residents. That's any job. If I go type in job description for administrative assistant, that's what's gonna get spit out. What I wanna see is the results. Oversaw an office of 20, managed 100 to 200 calls a day, planned an event for 500 people. We wanna see the numbers, the results, generated $1 million in revenue.
Would you go start over again?
Yes, ma'am.
What you were listing?
What we want to see is the results. This is generic, right? This is just one of the examples of what not to do on a resume, I think, overall. Because the I and the stood on the post, greeting and directing, I interacted with 300 guests a day, provided information on locations, more than I stood on a post, right? That attention to detail, I can't tell you how many times I pull up a resume and DC is lowercase. Or September is lowercase. Or there's 4 different fonts in the resume. Right? Or I had one guy who literally he put the job and that was it. Now understanding, I'm going to be obsolete. So when you are filling out this online, if you're not putting in the results or putting any details, that computer is going to boop right over you. Does that make sense?
Oh, I have a question though.
Yes. I like questions.
The whole thing about, being, boop. And some of these online applications, there's the little red asterisks that, you have to
That's
answer.
complete
Now,
no.
what about the ones that you don't answer, that are not required because,
I would love to see your certifications if you have any.
Mhm.
I'd love to see your job experience, whatever that may be. I want to get to know you and understand that's me as a human. The computer wants to see, okay, they're looking for this certification. You didn't put it? No. You need to have a degree. You didn't put it? No. And literally, it's like dinner. You check it off here, you check it off there, you check it off there, and then they pull the candidates. So if you don't meet those criteria, they're not even looking for you. So don't get diarrhea of the mouth and overshare irrelevant information, but it's something related to your career, share it. Get those certifications. Put that information in there because I can just check, I want that certification, I want a degree, I want 3 to 6 years experience. And it's gonna go pull down, and that's what it's gonna get. So, yes, ma'am.
When they ask, like for 10 years of experience or 20 years, and you have 30 years of experience, so how do you do that?
Give me 20.
Okay.
And I can test that objective. I have 29 years of experience. You're throwing yourself out. I don't need to know you have 29 years of experience. I have 10 years, I have 15 years. That's enough. We don't need 15. 15 is good. 15 is good. That's 15, 18 is the happy place. When you start saying 20, 30, I got one the other day, 35 years of experience. Really?
Yeah.
We don't need to know all that
Maybe
because
15 is good.
15 is good.
Yeah.
15 is good. That puts you about mid-30s. You can surprise them when you walk through the door. But the goal is to be able to walk through the door. Right? Because again, think about who's hiring.
Just what, like, can you do like over 5 years of experience so you don't
Yeah.
lie and you don't?
Yeah, over 10.
You're not lying. Please don't lie. But, you know, if it's 5, then it's 5. If it's 10, 10. If it's 15, 15. But I don't need 30 years of experience.
But if you have them and you put only over 10 years.
That's fine. That's over 10 years.
Okay.
Especially if the job requirement is, 2 to 5 years or
Right.
10 years I require, so it would be 10 plus years.
Right. Very rarely are they saying when they want. If you're going for an executive director, yes, then they want 20 years of experience. But if you're coming in as an entry, I just want to know, can you do the job?
Mhm. Okay.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And building those skill sets up. Take this time to go figure out what certification. They now have event planning certifications.
Mhm.
So going out there, getting that certification, hospitality certifications through UDC, everybody has them. Will they hire you just based on that? No, but if we see that you're actively participating, enhancing your skill set, then we want to continue to have that conversation. Does that make sense? You can't really see it as well. But this is a good girlfriend of mine. She's in her mid-50s. She started it down here. It does say 1996 to 2000. That's about it, right? She has way more experience than this. But we don't need 8 pages. I don't need every job that you've had since you've been alive. Right? I don't. I don't really, if I make it to page 2, we're good. You also don't need to put on your resume references available upon request. That kind of dates you a little bit. If I want your references, I'll ask you for them. Right?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because that was a certain time ago. So we kind of know who we're dealing with. Give me 1 second and I'll get your question. The other phrase that I absolutely positively detest is I'm a people person. Because what I say is, I'm probably the only one in the room who's worked with a hippo. And I have. My first job out of college was a zookeeper. So I have, but aren't we all people person? Don't we all interact with other people? So I figure if I see you, I figure you're probably a people person, right? I love interacting. I love providing exceptional customer service. I really get charged on helping others. For those, Laurel was talking about hospitality. One of the things you need to be able to answer is, what is your definition of hospitality? What's your definition of customer service? And I'm telling you the definition that just sets me off is customer service is serving the customer. And I'm like, did you not have my English teacher?
Right, that's right.
Answer the word with the word you were trying to define. No, that was okay. So have those questions ready to go. If you have an employment gap, you best be ready to explain that and not look like a deer in the headlights like, oh, I didn't think you would ask me that. You need to have that practice and ready to rock and roll. You need to know, where do you want to be in the next 2 to 3 years, right? And hopefully not retirement, because people want to see you grow with the company. So if you say, well, in the next 2 to 3 years I'm going to retire, I'm like, well, then go work at Walmart. Be a greeter. Don't come here, because I want to be able to promote you and have you grow within my organization. One of my favorite ones is, if your past employer was to bring in a cake and it had one word to describe you on it, what would be that word? Right? Basically, I'm asking you to tell me what your last boss thought of you. I just phrased it in a different way that kind of puts it out of the norm. Right? But what is that word? So if you say dependable, reliable, how did you exude that? Right? So don't just have the word, have the stories. Have your stories, as you were saying, to go with it, to explain it. Does that make sense? You had a question.
Oh, only because I actually went to a workshop that was, now this was specifically for government.
Government is a whole different ball of wax. You put all your salaries, you put all 18 years, but outside of that, and my thing is this, I have 12 resumes. I have a resume for spa, I have a resume for instructor, I have a resume for massage therapist, I have a resume for nail tech, I have a resume for research, I have a resume for recruiting and training. So do not use your government resume as a catch-all. Because one, it's 12 pages. It's everything you've done and every salary that you've ever made. They need that. I don't need to see your salary since the 1980s.
And I was told for private, you only need 1 or 2 pages. And then when I went to this, they were saying they wanted over 10 pages.
Government is different.
And they were preparing how to do that.
Yes.
But that threw me for a loop.
That's a whole, government jobs are a whole, I am private sector. Give me 1 second, I got a question in the back and I'll come back to you. Government is a whole different sector. You're gonna create specifically for that audience. This is private sector, you're gonna create for this sector. So 1 to 2 pages max. I wanna see the results. I don't wanna see anything from the 70s, 80s, minimal 90s. Maybe you were there for 12 years, from like 96 to 2007. Let's include that, but we don't need anything before that. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am.
I just had a question. Because I just recently heard when you were talking about how bosses view you, and I'm retired federal, by the way, and we have changed the way we do resumes, so we still don't want 8 pages, you know. But anyway, but the thing that I've heard is that, is it true that bosses can't, when they are called for a reference, has it become, they can only give general?
Right, you can only ask specific questions, and the number 1 question is, would you rehire that candidate? When the time frame also, that's really important, because you know, folks start getting Pinocchio on their timelines, like they were there for 5 years and they were there for 6 months. That's what we're looking for, is to do the timelines line up, and would you rehire that candidate? And let me say this, it's a small world. I had a candidate that came in a couple of, probably earlier this year. I sent her resume to one of my directors in Chevy Chase. He knew the organization that she had worked for previously, called that person and said, would you rehire? He said, absolutely not. Conversation is over.
So they can't do that anymore? Or?
They can. Always, the questions you can ask is the time that they worked there, who was your supervisor, and are they eligible for rehire?
Okay.
Right, so it makes it so that they can't really badmouth you as much. They have to be very specific in the questions that they ask. But the biggest question is going to be, are they eligible for rehire?
So that with that question, you can kind of sort of
weed them out.
Yeah.
You can. You really can. You kind of say, well, you know, because you can't really go into detail of why they're not eligible for rehire. But if they're not, it's usually something happened that makes you not eligible for rehire.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes, ma'am.
My last employer was Progressive Technology Federal Services.
Okay.
And I was doing one of the persons doing data entry.
Okay.
In other words, we were analyzing documents that were real complex. And we had to do 60 per day production. And I received a $200 bonus from this organization.
Okay.
4 months later, they let me go. They said, oh, you're making mistakes. But I am very detailed on it, very accurate on what she reads and what she transported. But it was a very, very volatile atmosphere. The supervisor was not always straight up.
Okay.
Very anti some things that she would get into that would be very insulting.
Okay.
So they told me I was let go. Now, later, the supervisor who hired me, she left with me. As several his supervisors there also left with me. So if I was being linked on LinkedIn, then
But LinkedIn is not a referral. LinkedIn is networking.
I know, but again, they let me go saying that I had all these mistakes.
Right.
But again, it was a very uncomfortable situation many times in that office
Okay.
because of the conversation and what was going on.
But we're gonna move forward to
Yeah.
what you're doing going forward. So.
So I actually have never called this progressive technology or referred to them
Mhm.
because of the,
You can always have a friend call and just say that they're doing a referral on you just to see what feedback they would get.
that's right.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it is. Good.
The
Hi, I'm
other
calling
thing is,
such and such company. I just wanted to get a reference. You can do that.
yeah.
They know my voice, I have to get some.
Now there's
Well, no, you have to get somebody. So you have to get someone else to call and do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly.
But you want to know what they're going to say.
Right.
Because, and that's the same thing with your references. You don't want to give a reference and they're like,
Yeah.
she was okay. You want that stellar reference. So you can have a friend call, preferably if you have someone from HR or a friend from a recruiter or anything like that, where they can call and do that, get that reference for you and see what they're giving. Now again, they have to be very mindful of what they are sharing. And the most important question, as I said, is going to be, are they eligible for rehire? That's going to be it.
The other thing is, I wanted to mention, is that federal resumes now are at least 5 pages.
Yes.
I've been going to Arlington Employment Center.
Yeah, but I don't do federal. So that's another speaker.
I know, but I'm
This
just,
is private sector. So yeah, I mean, but government is a different animal.
oh,
Completely and
I-
totally.
I-
Yeah.
I'm giving information, you know.
Yes. No, I know it's a totally different. The more information
I
for
know
government
it
is better. But for private sector, it's not, because we're not going through that. We don't have the same requirements.
I know.
Okay. Question over here. Deborah?
Oh,
You have
no,
a question?
no.
Okay.
No,
All right. Any other questions? Thoughts?
Now, how do you keep, you've got so many opportunities that
Uh-huh.
you can apply for.
Yes.
How do you keep track?
Write it down.
I do, but again,
Excel file. This is the job. This is the day that I
Actually,
applied.
I could address that there's a tool called Jibber Jobber
Okay,
made
there you go.
specifically for that, jibberjobber.com.
Thank you.
Robert,
Because there's. Go ahead.
how do you spell that?
JIBBERJOBBER.com.
Thank you, sir. Because there's nothing worse, and I've gotten 2 in the last week. I went to a career fair last week, and the one lady was like, "I'm so interested in a housekeeping position with your company." Da, da, da. And I was like, "We don't do housekeeping." Nowhere in the entire company do we have housekeeping. I don't know if you have the right company. Someone else is like, they called us another company. And I was like, what? I when we came in, I said, one of the questions, and this is so important, when you make it into that interview, please do your research on that company and know about that company. Google them, look at their website. What are they about? What's their mission statement? How long have they been around? Because I had an interview, and one of the first questions I asked is, tell me about my company. And the woman says, you guys do psychiatric care. I said, I think you're in the wrong interview. We don't do any psychiatric. You might have to deal with the residents, right? But we don't title it as psychiatric care. We call it customer service. So making sure you can differentiate between those different companies and when you apply, because I pulled candidates from June last week, right? So knowing that, so when you get that email from that recruiter, again, that professionalism, and don't shoot it down. I've had people where I'm only looking for a full-time position, so if this is only part-time, I'm not coming in. The next day I had a full-time position. Like, things change on a dime. So be open to those possibilities and those opportunities. The hardest part really is getting your foot in the door. And you will find a lot of small businesses these days are not hiring full-time employees. They're focusing a lot more on that part-time because they don't have to pay all those benefits. So a lot of them will get you in, test you out, right? We're gonna do the engagement phase. And then we'll look at those full-time opportunities. But just don't shoot it down, and the more interviews you can get, the better, because it only increases your practice, right? So the eye contact, anticipating those answers, having your questions, because it's a date. So I want you to ask me about me the same way I want to ask you about you. And having that interaction. The one thing I would be concerned about with that one word you said was introvert. No one in hospitality likes an introvert. Because even though you might have that title of marketing, you might have to, because marketing today is very different than 20 years ago. Marketing today is you're going to get out there and you might have to literally shake hands and kiss babies. Or you might have to have, marketing today is also IG, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, that interaction as well. So amongst your friends, you might be able to be an introvert, but never in a professional setting, because that's a tick against you out the gate. Because I don't want someone who can't talk to my guests, who can't interact with my residents, who might not even be able to have a conversation with their coworkers, right? Because introvert has a whole different kind of context. So be mindful of those words, because they can be very powerful. And they can open the door, they can close it. And it's little things. It's never like something crazy over the top. It's like one interaction. I had a gentleman a couple weeks ago, beautiful resume. Stellar. Just phenomenal resume. I was like, I gotta bring him in. Like, this is what I've been looking for. What's your definition of customer service? Serving the customer. I was like, how soon could this be over? And then it did a beautiful.
Was it gum or was it just his mouth?
Oh no, it was gum, and it wasn't. People get nervous. It was smacking. Like I was like, he's about to pop a bubble at any second here. Did a beautiful follow-up thank you email, but I was like, your communication does not match up with your presentation. So making sure that that is cohesive. And let me tell you this, in this world of high technology and millennials, you sending a thank you email will set you apart from the crowd. In 2 years, I think I have gotten 2 thank you emails for the interview. And I interview between 6 to 12 people a week.
And is an email okay?
Email is so
handwritten again.
Yes.
It's a different generation.
It might take
by
a
the
little
time
while.
it gets there.
Well, it's also going to play into the position that you're applying for. Sometimes for those higher level director positions, that card is fantastic. For some of those entry levels, you can just send a nice email. You were going to say, sir?
Yes, on the thank you note. I'm
Yes.
a former employment manager.
Yes.
Interviewed and hired hundreds and hundreds of people. Thank you notes are very important, and really they should be a handwritten thank you card in the mail. Because
that's what
the
I'm asking,
email,
the
I've
time
had
frame.
people call me and say, did you get my thank you note? I emailed. No, it went into spam or it went somewhere.
Oh.
Okay? So when a person gets that thank you note in the mail when they open it, it's a very positive feeling. Okay? And I should display them. So
I have to say, in this day and age, even to get a thank you email is so rare. I've never gotten a written thank you in 2 years.
Yeah.
Not one. So even just to get a thank you email in this day and age is like, whew, look here.
I was having a conversation with someone recently because I spent a long time writing 4 thank you notes to 4 different people, emails. It's just like, oh, you don't need to, like, really?
But
It
no.
was a very strange, it was a very strange reaction.
Well, the important thing about sending it in the mail, it'll get there maybe 2 days later,
Right.
3 days later. So that person has to think about you again, okay?
Yes.
And it's going to be a positive thought
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Remember, once you leave the interview, they're thinking of the next person they're going to be interviewing. So you lose credibility in terms of being the person they're interested in. So the more you can
Get back
to them with, not stalking, but just positive
Yes, no
way.
stalking, please.
Is it type, is a copy of what you emailed also acceptable as opposed to handwritten? I'm afraid someone won't be able to read my name, right? And they won't be able to read my name, so.
Yeah. And always in the thank you note, say something that you picked up in the interview and how you can make a difference in the success of that operation.
Yes.
Okay? So it's
And
all
what are the next
program.
steps?
Yeah, I mean, it really makes
goes
a
a
big
long
difference.
way.
Yeah.
What are the next steps?
Good
some
to
people
know
just
that's
kinda-
still applicable.
It does. Now you're younger, well, one, the computer, you're not gonna be able to send that to. But if you have that human interaction, especially because you're gonna have to go through different tiers to be able to get to that, when you do have that human interaction, you definitely wanna be able to follow that up. Question?
Yes, how can you go from the health sector and development to the hospitality sector in this country?
It's all customer service. So what I would focus on is your interaction and how many people you took care of because you said medical, hospital?
Yeah, like monitoring and evaluation of health facilities.
Yeah, so you dealt with people
like
all day?
Africa and Latin America.
But you dealt with people all day?
Yeah.
That's what you do in hospitality. So it all relates. It's the same thing when I came from massage, went from science to massage. I still had to deal with people. So that's what we want to know, is that you haven't sat back in a corner in a closet somewhere and haven't talked to anybody in 10 years. We want to know that you know how to take care of people, that you can resolve issues. Because that's what hospitality is. It's resolving problems. So, I was able to, I had 100 people that came every day I interacted with that did ABC. That's what I'm going to be looking for.
Or like the factor that I will have to talk with the people, like in a hospital, with everybody, to see what they want, what will be better for them to do their job. And I will go all over the hospital and make a design. Like, how can I put it?
Well, you got to put that in better words, because that's a paragraph. So, was able to provide customer service to 100 different clients per day, was able to assess their needs and assist them in resolving their issues.
How would you use mediation training, certified mediation, or?
What are you applying for?
I'm just in general, right, in terms of these particular, anything when we're talking about in terms of hospitality, customer service.
Mediation is a little bit higher.
Okay. Then conflict resolution.
Yes, that's conflict resolution is a little better than mediation, because mediation, you think about two different parties and you're kind of in the middle. With this, you are that other party and you're helping to calm them down. So conflict resolution, customer service, and just what you did, more than I was a front desk agent, I answered the phones, I greeted guests as they come in. I already know that, but how many? What did you do? Received employee of the month. Like those little things, please don't put like 1987 now. Just received employee of the month. Those little things that are going to set you apart, because again, I have so many applicants. And it's, again, those little details. Is your first and last name capitalized in the system? Is your street dress capitalized? Did you answer all of the questions? Do you have a job description? All of those things in there make that very important. And let me say this, I can't tell you how many resumes I get with no contact information. So am I supposed to smoke signal you? How does that work? I just got one the other day and I said, what am I supposed to do with this? Also be mindful of putting your contact information in the header, not just the regular Word document. So it's just right there, you just have your name, but some people will put that in the header at the top where you have to double click on it. The computer program can't read that. So it sees it as blank. So, a lot of times you can pull from the resume and put it into the application. If you put it in that header, it can't read it because it's invisible to the computer system.
So what are you saying, your name?
Just put the name, email address, phone number. Please stay away from AOL. If you have an AOL account, I need you to get a Gmail or a Yahoo account.
I know Hotmail dates.
Oh, Hotmail
also.
is old lady.
Okay. So it has to be
Please,
Gmail.
please update those emails. They're free.
Yeah, no, I have a Gmail.
So, and I know this
Look
audience
at
will
it.
not put sweet sexy at 101 at yahoo.com. I know this is not that demographic. But yeah, just go get a Ymail, or which is your Yahoo Mail or a Gmail account. Get rid of Hotmail. Because again, it dates how old you are.
So you said put the contact information within the same type of
Yes.
font as the rest of the resume.
Right, don't put it at the top in the header where I have to double click on it. Because the computer can't see it, and I send out probably 50 interview invites a week, and when I gotta go double click on it, I don't want to double click. I'll make it easier for the recruiter. I just want to go highlight your email address and then I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Versus having to go double click, go find it. I had one last week, it just had her name. I was like, what in the world? So luckily it was a referral from someone. So I went back to the person. I was like, can you have them email directly, because there's no contact information from them. And I would say tap into your network. See, do you have any friends who maybe work at a company? Are they hiring? Doesn't hurt. And they may not, it may be like, because when I heard event planning, the thing that I thought of was like Marriott. Like hotels do a lot of event planning. But now, like I said, they are looking for a few more certifications for the specific event planning. But do you know anybody who works at Marriott? Do you know anyone in Hilton, Hyatt? They do events all year round, right? So getting creative, thinking outside the box. Who do I know? What do I know? Let me get on LinkedIn. You're supposed to add 10 people to your LinkedIn contacts a day.
A day.
A day. I have 1,400. And I'm still going in there. I'm not job hunting, but I'm still going in there. Who has something interesting? I just got a recruiter from Marriott, just viewed my profile. I went back and liked hers. Because I'm going to make it easier for you to find me, right? But making it active, and as Greg said, like, you can write an article for LinkedIn. Talk about what's new in event planning, what's new in the hospitality industry, what's going on in the sector that you want to be in, because it will tag those articles, and now they even have the hashtag for the 40 plus, the pound sign, where you now can tag different titles. So you could tag event planning, you could tag hospitality, career development, fine arts, whatever that may be, but get out there. If you have this time, make yourself an expert. Share that information, right? Yes, sir.
I'd like to go back to the beginning of your presentation when you showed all these parts of the hospitality industry that are being replaced by artificial intelligence and other technology.
Yes.
What areas of hospitality do you see that will still be using people in the next 5 to 10 years?
It's really interesting. So Fast Company said it was going to be barbers and massage therapists would be those least impacted.
You can't automate a barber, I guess.
You cannot. Remember the Flowbee? I'm in a room where people know what the Flowbee is. Remember the Flowbee? You don't remember the Flowbee?
Oh, wow.
It was a
Yes,
thing where it was
right.
like a vacuum and it would cut your hair for you. You just put it on different lengths. It was in the 80s. It was
Yes.
yellow. It was atrocious. But you could suck your hair and it would cut it in like a vacuum cleaner. The Flowbee, look it up. Barbers, those hands-on. And what I really see happening in hospitality, and I said it probably 5 years ago, it's going to be that 1% that will pay for human interaction. Everybody else is going to go automated. So I have a building down by the Navy Yard, and they have a yoga room. That is my, wellness is my baby. I love some yoga. I said, well, do I need to hire you guys a yoga instructor? She said, absolutely not. You're going to cut on the TV in the room. They select their yoga teacher, and they go for it. And I'm like, this is a high-end building. But that's the reality of the world that we live in. So I really do think it's going to be that 1% will continue to pay for that human interaction, and everyone else is going to be automated. There's a program now called Flippity. It's a burger flipper. It can check the temperature of the meat on the grill. It will also check the temperature of the food in the refrigerator. There are now McDonald's where they've gotten rid of the person. It's a kiosk. You go, you walk up to that kiosk in the U.S., not China, here. You just go, you type in your order, and then they bring it to you.
Wow.
So if you can get rid of the person serving you by the kiosk, and you can get rid of the person flipping the burgers in the back with the computer,
What's going to happen to all these people?
I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. Because, I have positions, and I'm looking, I'm always looking for polished, well put together, people who can provide great customer service. And because it's gotten so challenging, the unemployment rate is at 3.9% right now. It's the lowest it's been in a very long time. I can't find people, right? So now they've actually had to start increasing the pay rates to be able to recruit a little bit more. And then Amazon is about to change the whole game on Thursday because they're going to pay $15 an hour across the board, and their part-time employees get benefits.
Wow.
I can't compete with that. So they're going to have to eliminate me and get the computer system because we're going to have to get more creative in this job market and being able to recruit these candidates in. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
You referenced job fairs.
Yes.
Yeah, in your seminar that you went to, what are they saying about the future of job fairs?
I have to tell you, it's pretty bleak. I was just at a job fair last Friday. I probably came across 100 candidates in about 4 hours. 4. I would actually consider hiring.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're not going to hire that many. I did, hundreds of job fairs
Right.
when I was recruiting IT people. And I actually hired people that I probably wouldn't have hired had I just seen their resume. So job fairs are very valuable for the person to get out there and, you know,
But the
show who
challenge
they
now
are.
is
Yeah,
they gotta go apply online.
yeah.
So Hilton, Hyatt, Marriott, they'll say, hi, how are you? I'll take your resume.
Right.
Here's the information to go apply online.
Yeah, let's.
So it's just,
yeah.
it's more of a face to get more people to apply online, more than, hi, let's go have a conversation over here, let's see if you can walk away with a job today. We really are going to this, where it's
Yeah.
not that human interaction. So,
So how do you learn how to do this? That was my question
Oh,
earlier.
yeah,
How do you learn
yeah.
how to go to that thing and fill it out?
just pay attention. And I know it's like 2 hours. Like, you just need to set aside that time, have it prefab, know who your reference are, have your job listings there, have the addresses, have your timelines, so that when they ask you that, you can just copy paste and put it right on in.
No practice places? Practice? When I really mean this, honestly.
I'm sure that there probably is, but
Apply for
I'm
ones you're not
on.
interested in, right? That's-
Right.
No, I mean, that's what I'm
Or, I mean, we
doing,
wanted
right?
to
And
do
ones that are
art,
kind
so
of
I would
throwaways,
look
so I can
at,
practice the.
Websites, maybe
verbiage
companies you're not
and,
necessarily highly interested in, but go and apply
Yeah.
and see what that process is like, because you never know when it might actually turn into something.
Yeah,
But the
so
more,
I'm
it's
starting
really
to
just
do.
gonna be setting, because you can't like go, let me go cook dinner and come back, let me go get the kids and come back 2 hours later, because you're gonna have to start all over again. It's really setting aside that time. And I mean, job hunting is a full-time job.
Yeah.
It really is, like, you're gonna say, okay, I know, Marriott is a 2-hour process, so I need to set aside from 10 to 12 to go sit down and fill out this application.
And do you fill out applications even if you don't have a specific job there that you are applying for? If it's not open yet, if it's not listed?
Well, if it's not
still a
open,
good
they're not gonna
idea?
let you apply, so you need to find
So
something.
it has to be through an actual.
Yes,
job.
usually it's, you need to go click the job, and what I will say is also be mindful, I get a lot of applicants from Florida and Chicago, but my turnaround rate is a week. So we don't have time to move you in and all that other stuff. So a lot of times applying out of state, if you really wanna, if you know you wanna move to California, you have a friend in California, see if you can use your friend's address. Because if I see California, reject.
Wow.
Because I don't have time. Like, I have a building opening on the 15th. So that means you need to be behind the desk on the 15th. I just found out on Friday that I have a building opening on the 15th
Of November?
of November.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay. We'll talk.
Okay.
But you have to apply online.
You do have to apply online, but in that case, like, I don't have 3 months, I don't have 6 weeks lag time for you to be able to come out, do a live interview, move to across the country. I know what that looks like because I've done that. I need you here and ready to go train at another property. So we only have one full-time position at that location, and that's going to go to an internal employee. Everything else is going to be weekend part-time. And I will say that's going to be a lot more common, is that our part-timers move into full-time positions, our full-timers become directors, and our directors become area directors. So I had a gentleman that I hired last May for a part-time weekend overnight position. He just became a director in September. So it does happen, but it might not be that full-time. And I have a lot of 40 plus that have like 2 or 3 part-time positions, waiting on which one is going to become full-time, or waiting on that government job to come through, because that takes about 3 to 6 months to get the background check and everything done. So just, utilizing these opportunities, those cracks in those doors, to be able to step through for those opportunities. Does that make sense? Yes, Greg.
I'm curious to know, as a recruiter, if you're looking, if it made it through the online and you're reviewing it, how do you communicate? Because to me this would be important. It's hard to do this quantitatively, that you survived a RIF or several RIFs. So, no, but that you have like the skill to work with reduced staffing, and as you said, also keep the customer happy with their level of service that you provide. So how can you communicate that in a resume?
What I look for is, if I see a large gap, then I'm automatically going to education and see, have you done any additional training? I work with a lot of organizations that the employees do have gaps in employment. So I work with like America Plus, UDC Pass program. So I'm open to that. Some companies may not be, but I think if you have large gaps, we want to see what have you been doing in between there to kind of fill that gap and enhance your skill set.
Right, so I didn't communicate that too.
Okay.
So, we'll use
An organization, and I'm looking at it?
Yeah, let's just say I'm putting a resume.
Uh-huh.
I worked in an organization of 100 people.
Uh-huh.
They reduced it to 50.
Okay.
I'm one of those people.
That got ripped?
No, that made it.
Okay.
So to me, that's what I'm saying. It's like I'm working with less resources, less staff members, but I'm still providing the same level of service.
Then I will put that in the job description. You know, the company went from 100 to 50. I've taken on 3 additional titles or responsibilities and have been able to master that while still providing exemplary customer service.
Right. That would get your attention?
It would. Well, I mean, it's always, it's always easier to get a job when you have a job.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And what I find with the younger demographic is they have had 17 jobs in 5 years. Right? I had one person who literally had a job for a month. I said, why did you put that on there? What was the point of this?
Right.
Right?
Wow.
It was literally from August to September.
Yes.
Let's scrape that. So again, we're looking for different things. And, you know, the millennials are like, well, if I'm at a job for a year and I don't advance, I'm leaving.
Right.
Right? And that's what if you go look on LinkedIn, how do you advance? Find another job after a year. And companies are like, they don't want you if you've been in a job for 10, 15 years. They feel like you kind of rusted out and you haven't really applied all your skill set. So what I will say is if you had 10 years of experience at a company, what training have you gotten in addition to that to enhance your skill set? It's a very tech-driven world. I want to know that you can, you know how to Uber, you know how to log in packages, you know how to go onto these programs and these systems and look this information up. Right? Makes sense? We also I don't need to see that you know how to do Word on your resume. I'm going to take that as a given. Right? And we also know no people person anywhere in the conversation or resume. Anything?
So you say Word, does that also apply to Microsoft Office or you say Word?
I feel like in this day and
We
age,
don't have to
But now you use Google documents.
Right, we know how to do PowerPoints and.
also be very careful with the system that you use for your sending your resumes. Google Documents, a lot of times, if it's a work computer, will not allow you to open it. And I can't tell you how many times I've had that issue. Or if you do not have a Gmail account, it's very hard to open Google Documents. The same is true with Apple. I can't tell you how many Apple-based resumes I get, and I don't do Apple. I cannot open, and it's just on my laptop, I cannot open an Apple document on my computer. So a Word, or I like PDF. PDF is a little bit better because you can even go in and click and it'll say copy email address. I can pull it down, send you an email. But it's those little things, like I don't want to take 15 extra steps just to open your resume or have to follow up with you, have you resend it, and a lot of systems now are very secure. So a lot of programs won't let you click and download those external pieces that you need to be able to have it right then and right there. Does that make sense? Like, if you're going into fashion or if you're going into something that requires it, I saw a resume at George Mason a couple of weeks ago, and they literally had a logo of every company they worked at. I said, are you going into fashion? She said, no, I'm doing business. I said, well, why do you have the logo? I can read what the company is. I don't need the logo to go with it. And that of course made it 3 pages because you had to allow extra space for the logo. And I said, well, your career
She
choice?
wasn't with the company.
She said, no, my friend did it. I said, is she in fashion? Because for fashion, yes, I can get it. If you work for Tory Burch and you want to have that logo on there, I get it. But you work for Chipotle and you're looking for business, I don't need the logo for Chipotle. I know what a Chipotle is. Right? We don't need to go over the top, but just, be very thorough in what you are giving me. Yes, sir.
I actually saw at a job fair someone who was in marketing had a marketing brochure for themselves.
Fantastic.
But what she did, she had a separate resume she was applying online, but if she was seeing you in person, she
There
had
we go. And let me tell you what happens at career fairs. You bring 6 resumes and there's 50 vendors.
Right.
What are you leaving me with? And the same is true still with interviews. Like, I'm not Google. You're not going to create a video resume for me. I can't tell you how many 40 plus come in with no resume.
Where at the job fair?
At an interview. Bring your resume. It's what you're leaving you with. I take notes. There's an app called Cam Scanner, so if I haven't seen, maybe I met you at a career fair, I'm scanning your resume and I'm, because we don't fax anymore. So don't ask, can you fax them anything? Again, you're gonna date yourself. You're gonna eliminate yourself from the pool. Cam Scanner. I can take a picture of the document, make it a PDF, and I can email it to you right then and right there. So don't make it more complicated than it has to be. Clean, simple, easy. Any other questions? CM, it's CAM scanner. It's green and black. It literally says C and F. So that's what happens when I meet people at the career fair. I'm like, oh my goodness, I love her resume. Scan it. I can forward it right to my director. Here's the candidate that I met at the career fair today. It's so quick and so easy. You don't have to scan it through. It'll adjust it for you. It'll turn it 360. It'll make it brighter for you. It's a fantastic app to have. Yes, Cam Scanner. Question in the back.
Yes. Going back to LinkedIn, you said find.
Louder?
Yeah, you were saying that for LinkedIn, find 10 new contacts per day.
Per day.
So let's go through any articles in your industry that look interesting. Let's ask them, can I?
You can connect with them. LinkedIn will also send you people who are in your industry. Right. If you go to the people, it has like 2 heads on it. They usually have people in there that you know or your contacts may know.
Okay.
So you could start there and then go and see who is in your industry. Go look, so thinking about what industry you want to go into, maybe what organization you want to work for. Now again, this is not stalking. No stalkery. Maybe it's Marriott. I don't know how to spell Marriott. So you go, you look at Marriott, who's their regional recruiter in this area? Who is their GM of the locations? Who's their training manager? And those will be the people that you want to connect with, because what happens when Marriott has the job up, they will show you who in your contacts work for that company that you can reach out to.
Okay.
So figuring out what you want to do, what's your ideal company, and then working backwards from there. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Use the tools. Yes, ma'am.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
I have several positions. I worked for 2 employment agencies, staffing agencies. One went out of business.
Okay.
He's on my LinkedIn, but I still don't have a guarantee that he'll give me a reference. Okay? But he's just on LinkedIn.
Okay.
The other employer, it was my last position with them was in 2002.
Okay.
They won't even though I've got all these accomplishments and experience and education, they won't consider me. Okay, so that's fine.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that they'll give me that reference.
Well, references aren't necessarily from your companies. References are from external people that will verify that you're a good person. So you can say on your resume they've gone out of business or no longer in business, right? So that they're not going to call them. But your references are something different. References should be individuals that can verify that you are a good standing person, that you perform to where you need to perform. The companies will come and go. So I'm not as concerned if the company is still in business as much as I can call your references and say that you were a great employee. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? Okay. I feel like my time is up here.
Good. Very good.
Very good. It was a pleasure being here. So, did you print out the flyer? No? I have, oh, heck, I didn't put it in here. My email address.
Yeah, I would get it.
Okay, so he has my email address. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you.
I want to give you a couple coveted items.
I do. I love a good
40 plus model and 40 plus.
Ooh, I love things.
Thank you very much. Fantastic.
Today.
Thank
We
you.
got to get a picture.